European Theater, 84th Infantry, the Rail Splitters. Just quickly, do you want to mention why were you guys called the Rail Splitters?
Well, it was in memory of Lincoln, of course, but that's about all I know about it.
And, you know, I checked it out just a little bit, and it seems like the initial group of the 84th did come from the Illinois, Kentucky area where Lincoln grew up. So it like you say, it was kind of a hats off to Lincoln. So Molly, you had a question.
Yeah. Well, before I want to find out where you were at the end of the war, but before we get to that, I wanted to see, are there any other stories you want to tell us about while you were there? Because you were a medic and you came up on Omaha Beach 2 days after D-Day. You were through Paris, Belgium, Holland, so many different areas. You saw battle in different areas. You spent some time in the basement of some of the German homes. And you talked about the people in the communities and the towns that came out and were just so thankful that you were there, bringing you food. And I know that that's still the way it is in Normandy today. They still tell their kids, they still celebrate America's sacrifice for them. Is there anything else you want future generations to know about your time in the war before we talk about the end of it?
Well, I remember one day talking to some troops from 2 different armored divisions, and I forget which one was Patton's, but anyway, the troops liked him, some of them, and some of them hated, about half and half. But these guys were talking about fighting the German tanks with their 88 shells, and one of them said, you know, the other day I bounced 3 of our 75s off of a tank, a German tank, and it just kept coming right at me. And the other one, in fact, I saw a tank one time that the 88 shell had gone in the back of the tank, out the front, and through a big dozer blade that was attached to the front end. So that was really a fearsome thing to see the 88 shells, whatever they could do.
The damage.
And of course, they could shoot anti-aircraft as well as other
from the tanks?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So what's your opinion of Patton, Phil Ansted?
Well, talking to these guys, just about, I thought he was a wizard, and I still do. For him to die at the end of the war the way he did was, I think, a real bad thing.
It was a Jeep accident, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that I guess maybe some of what I feel about him is in the movie, Patton.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't hurt to have our kids see that movie.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good movies about things that we don't think about anymore. But Patton was a conscientious person. He made enemies, and he and his superiors bickered over things, and he was right most of the time.
You know, to have a good tactical mind, you know, not everybody has that. And the other thing that, at least what I've seen Phil Ansted, is that Patton didn't ask his men to do anything that they didn't believe he would do himself. And, you know, there's a real dearth of leadership. Leaders don't just, I mean, you can be in a leadership position, but that doesn't mean you're a leader. And probably with Patton, you said half of them liked him and half of them didn't. But at least everybody had an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
right?
There's nothing lukewarm about Patton.
Mm-hmm.
So, Phil Ansted, where were you when you heard that the war was over?
I was back home. I was still, when I got back to the States, I thought, oh man, I'm going home. Well, I needed one more point for some calculation system they had to get out. So I had to stay in for 6 more months. And stayed probably the best place I was ever in the Army was in San Antonio. And I worked there as a clerk for 6 months. But when I came home, I remember I went to, there was a senior play at the school nearby, and I had met this pretty little redhead, and she and my mother went with me to the show, and I thought afterwards, well, did she really appreciate that? Anyway, out of the next 10 days, I dated her 7 times. And so we were married, and we had 1 son.
And what's her name?
Norma Jean.
Norma Jean.
Yeah. And she used to wear real cute hats. You know, girls nowadays don't wear them, but we had a good life together.
So, and how long were you married?
Oh, I don't even remember. She died, it probably must be at least a dozen years ago.
Yeah.
Well, Phil Ansted, you brought a picture in of you when you, were a young guy in the infantry. Pretty handsome. What did the ladies say to you about this picture?
Oh, well, I showed it to some while we were playing mahjong the other day, and they all smiled and said, "Well, I wish I knew you." But the ladies where I live were all retired and seniors, and so we play a lot of different kinds of games. I don't know whether you ever played mahjong or not. I thought it was just an old ladies game, but it's good for memory.
That's good.
And making you learn, and poker is too. And
Phil, we're just about out of time, and want to say thank you to you, and also to your son John, that brought you over to the station for this interview. The flag. When you see the United States flag, what do you think about?
It's our flag.
Yep, I think that pretty well says it. When you think about the sacred ground of Omaha Beach, I got the same feeling when I was back in Gettysburg. It is sacred.
Yes, we honor it. We should.
Yeah, yes, it is sacred ground. Phil Ansted, what would you say to our young people today?
I think it's important for them to learn about the past. Not just about it, but learn from it.
Yeah.
There are a lot more things now. As I look back and I see, you could go to the show for 15 cents, and our society has grown in many ways, some of them good and some of them bad.
My dad always said to me that, you need to be careful about what you put in, what you watch, what you think about, the music, the movies, the books. And I always said to my kids that I think that art should celebrate the human spirit. Because, Molly, we stand on the shoulders of giants such as Phil Ansted that picked up from where they lived. They went across an ocean to stand up against tyranny. They were hungry, they were brave, they were scared. And I think that we need to make sure we have 24 hours in a day and that we spend that in noble causes as much as possible. So Phil Ansted, it's really been an honor to have you here in studio with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, God bless you. We appreciate you and your generation, everything that you've done. We want to ask anybody out there, if you have a World War II story, we would love to share it because like Phil Ansted said, we've got to make sure future generations understand what that flag is for. There are people that are still today sacrificing life, limb, family, time to protect us here in America. And when America is safe, and when America thrives, other countries can too. And it's got to start here.
Well, most definitely. So we're talking a bit about George Patton, and we would highly recommend that everybody go get the movie with is it George C. Scott that's in that? I think he's the star there.
And if you only have time for one thing, watch the beginning speech.
There you go. There you go. And after we got back from Normandy, I got all these World War II movies. So so I watched a lot of them. But we're going to end the show today with a George Patton quote that has totally touched my heart as we think about Normandy and also the Pacific Theater. And he said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men lived." Thank you, Phil Ansted.
Amen to that. This is the Ameritic signing off, World War II Project Day. We'll see you on Monday. Join us back here.
That was fantastic.